Well, hello, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, in YouTube world. It's Luann Ash here. I'm just reporting in something that has been concerning me for a little while. And I just wanted to prepare you that this might be a very long and dry video. So if you at anywhere want to fast forward through anything, feel free. I won't be offended. But I think this is very, very important information for us all in Ontario and probably all of Canada to be paying attention to. And I just wanted to review something and remind you that on this channel on August 22nd of 2020, I uploaded a video about the Ontario Public School Board Association. Some things going on. And I was pulling threads and digging around and found some other things that I just didn't quite know how to share with you while I was running as a candidate. But now I'm not running it as a candidate, and praying God I never get the job as a school board trustee, but that I can always remain on the outside looking in for you and reporting back to you what I find and helping you to rise and shine and stand in your personal and family authority as a citizen of this province and of our country. And so anyway, this is going to be a little bit dry, but I just wanted to show you and remind you of the video link that I did make that recording August the 22nd earlier this year as I was doing some investigating and trying to bring some things to light for you to help you understand what is concerning me and which should concern you. Anyway, enough of that. I'll put the link for that in the show notes, and you can find that. All right. Very good. Okay. I had some really great words come to me in the middle of the night while I was sleeping. And when I thought of them, I thought, oh, I should write this down. And of course, I didn't. It is my humble opinion, and I could always stand to be corrected. And if at any time you find any factual errors in any of my videos, you're free to let me know of the facts that I have wrong with the documentation, because if there's no documentation, to me, it's not fact. It is just opinion or belief, which you're entitled to, exactly entitled to. But I was concerned when I saw in that video of the Ontario Public School Board Association that they have, since 2019, been implementing throughout all of the school boards, board-wise, or I should say province-wide, some policies which are presently, at the date of my speaking, as far as I know, contrary to what is in law. My belief, and I will just say it up here, up front, is that the schools, the Ministry of Education, through the school board associations, by way of Marxist activists, are implementing changes to our Ontario provincial law without parliamentary procedure. I'm going to try and show you that today, and it might be really dry because I'm going to be reading a lot. And if I rub my eyes, it's because I've got these studio lights on, and of course it makes your eyes dry, and nothing changes that. At any rate, okay. So here we are. We are going to go into the next screen where I'm going to start the boring part. This is what the thread I pulled out in the summer. Well, at the beginning of the fall, during my campaigning season, that I didn't quite know how to bring to you without getting attacked by the unionists and the Marxists. So I'm just going to show it to you here. What I discovered was a bill which has passed first motion as of today's date, in our legislative assembly in Ontario, which is already being implemented in our schools. Okay, before I show you the next slide, I wish I could have brought this to you sooner. You could have done something sooner. But the implementation of this unsigned into law, not signed into law, motion for a bill has already been implemented in the fact that your children have likely come home in the last couple of weeks with a notice from their school saying that they were taking a student census. And I spoke to every concerned parent who was affronted, dismayed, upset, enraged, terrified by this invasion into their family and child's privacy. I told them all, and I will tell you, just say no. It is the tactic of a bully, of a tyrant, of a psychopath to force you to make a decision that is very important in a very short time and to keep pressuring you until you comply. You don't need to comply. It is not in law. And yes, you were right. If your gut tells you it's wrong, just say no. I mean, this is what we say of rapists or kidnappers or people who are trying to lead you down the garden path with drugs and all of that kind of stuff. We try to train our children, and here I am trying to train you. Just say no. There are good reasons for you to say no, and you do not have to abide under such egregious invasion to your privacy or your personal being. Okay, so here I go. Now I'm going to change slides, and you're going to see what it is I'm going to show you what I found earlier this summer. There's a bill in Ontario Parliament that has been put forward. Oh my goodness, I need new lips today. It's called Bill 16, Racial Equity in the Education System Act 2022. And I'm just going to show you who put this forward. Lindo, her name is Laura May, and I'm going to click that open so that you can see who she is. She's from the Kitchener Centre. Her current parliamentary roles are Vice Chair, Standing Committee on Heritage Infrastructure and Cultural Policy. She is a critic of anti-racism and equity. She's a critic of colleges and universities who happens to be of the NDP party. Now, all of her constituency information is all right there. You can see that. All right, very good. Let's go back. The other person on that is Jill Andrew. Let's see who she is. She is Jill Andrew from Toronto, St. Paul's ward. And her current parliamentary roles are as critic of culture, critic of women's social and economic opportunity, heritage critic, and a member of the Standing Committee on Heritage Infrastructure and Cultural Policy. And of course, there's all of her information. And you can go to that website and you can see that for yourself. Let's go back and see the other one. Lise Vaugeois. There she is. She's from Thunder Bay in the ward, not the ward, you know what I'm talking about, of Superior North. And she is a critic of seniors, persons living with disabilities and accessibility. She's a member of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and her party is the New Democratic Party of Canada. Do you see what I am seeing so far? Okay. I showed people in another video somewhere along the line the party standing. So the NDP are a minority party. They are not in power. They have no authority to make law. They can criticize. They can hold the current standing party in power to account, but they are not the ruling party. All right, so you can go and see that at ola.org, Ontario Legislative. My teeth are bad today too. Legislative Assembly, and you look up members, current members. You can also look up ministries and different things like that to see what people are involved in. Okay, on this page, we have various things that we can see. There are different versions. We're going to go to view the bill, and we're going to look at the debates. Maybe we're going to look at this, but this is very long. Okay, so here is an explanatory note for you about what this is about. Various acts are amended with respect to racial equity. Here are some of the highlights. Okay, and I'm just going to stop and hold right here. Racial equity is not a historic category of Canadian Parliament in any place. This is a new thing that was stimulated by Marxists. Marxists are communists, and they're particularly active in academia and throughout. And they are not the party of record or the party in powder. But you're going to see some things going on here. A number of amendments are made to the Education Act. New subsection 10.1 bracket 3 of the Act is amended to require the minister to direct a board to develop its anti-racism accountability report if, in the opinion of the minister, there is indication that the board's new teacher induction program does not include anti-racism and racial equity training. Those are keywords, those are weasel words for Marxism. Just believe me and study it for yourself. Subsection 170, bracket 1 of the Act is amended by adding anti-racism related responsibilities to the duties of boards. New subsection 212, bracket 1.1 provides for fines for persons who disrupt or attempt to disrupt proceedings of a school or class through the use of racist language or activities. New section 277.28.1 provides that performance appraisal shall include competencies related to a teacher's anti-racism awareness, and efforts to promote racial equity. New subsection 301, bracket 7.1.1, requires the minister to establish policies and guidelines with respect to promoting racial equity in schools. New section 303.4 requires boards to establish and implement racial equity plans. Amendments to the Higher Education Quality Council of Ontario Act 2005 include new subsections 2, bracket 5.1 to 5.3 in brackets, which provide that at least one member of the council shall be a person who has expertise in racial equity in the post-education sector, and that all members must have proven commitment to racial equity or to take anti-racism training. Section 6 of the Act is amended to add racial equity-related requirements to the function of the council. Do you understand what has happened here? They have placed an emphasis on equity. Equity does not mean what you think it means. It does not mean equality. I'm not going to say any more right now. But they are training teachers and staff to include these Marxist policies. And making sure that there's someone there who has a proven commitment to Marxism. The Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities Act is amended to add new section 17.1, which sets out anti-racism and racial equity requirements that apply to every college of applied arts and technology and every university that receives ongoing operating funds from the government for the purposes of post-secondary education. Subsection 18, bracket 1 of the Ontario College of Teachers Act, 1996, is amended by adding a requirement that a person successfully completes any prescribed examinations and training in anti-racism in order to be issued a certificate of qualification and registration. Amendments are also made to the regulation-making authority of the Lieutenant Governor in Council. This is nothing less than a Marxist takeover of the school system. This is a takedown of Ontario provincial legislature by Marxism. Amendments to the Ontario Colleges of Applied Arts and Technology Act 2002 include adding anti-racist education and training to the education and training-related activities a college may undertake in carrying out its objects. New Section 5.1 sets out that each college or subsidiary of a college shall develop and implement an anti-racism policy. Amendments are also made to the Act to provide that at least one member of the Board of Governors and one member of the Board of Directors of the Council shall have expertise in racial equity in the post-education sector, and that all members must have a proven commitment to racial equity or take anti-racism training. The Anti-Racism Act 2017 is amended to add anti-Asian racism to the examples of types of systemic racism referred to in the Act. Do you see here that they already are implying systemic racism? Now, I'm not prepared in this video to talk about that. You can hear about that in a lot of different places, but it surely is not Canadian. This is an anti-Canadian document in my view. Okay, here is Bill 16, 2022. An act to amend various acts with respect to racial equity. Her Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the Legislative Assembly of the Province of Ontario, enacts as follows. Education Act. 1. Subsection 1, bracket 1 of the Education Act is amended by adding the following definitions. Anti-racism means the policy of opposing racism, including anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Black racism, anti-Asian racism, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia. And then there's the lutte contre le racisme. You notice there's nothing there to say about anti-Caucasian racism. Just let that sink in. Racism means the use of socially constructed ideas of race to justify or support, whether consciously or subconsciously, the notion that one race is superior to another. Racisme. Okay. I'm just going to stop and ask a question. Is there any one of you watching this video that considers any one race superior to another? Because I certainly don't. Because I hold to biblical views, and these biblical views say that all of us, every single human being on the planet, came from the same mother and the same father in the beginning. There's only one race, the human race. And all of these divisions based on inconsequential exterior qualities. All this distinction is by a racist. Number 2, Section 10.1 of the Act is amended by adding the following subsection. Same anti-racism training. 3, bracket, if, in the opinion of the minister, a report submitted under subsection bracket 1 indicates that the board's new teacher induction program does not include anti-racism and racial equity training as referred to in paragraph 3.1 of subsection 268 bracket 2, the minister shall inform the board of the fact and shall direct the board to further develop its anti-racism accountability program and resubmit the report within a time frame specified by the minister. Okay. This is just as dry can be. I know it is. It's dry for me to read. Time for a drink. Just water, folks. 3, bracket 1, subsection 169.1, bracket 1 of the Act is amended by adding the following clause. Bracket A.3, address racism and promote racial equity. In my view, that promotes racism. Promoting racial equity, in my view, is promoting racism, which they have clearly defined to exclude the Caucasian part of the race. I might get into trouble for this. Okay, bracket 2, subsection 169.1, bracket 2.1 of the Act is amended by striking out clauses bracket 1, bracket A.1, and bracket A.2, and substituting clauses bracket 1, A.1 to bracket A.3. Subsection 169.1, bracket 3 of the Act is amended by striking out allocation of resources and substituting allocation of resources, including the allocation of resources to address racism. 4, subsection 170, bracket 1 of the Act is amended by adding the following paragraphs: professional development programs, anti-racism. 7.3, establish and provide annual professional development programs to educate teachers and other staff of the board about promoting racial equity and developing the necessary tools to address racism. I don't think they're talking about necessary tools. I think they're talking about weapons of tyranny and oppression being given to staff and to teachers to use against those whom they deem by their subjective standards to be racist. But that's my humble opinion, and I'll probably get blacklisted for it. Programs, interventions, and other supports, anti-racism. 7.4 provides programs, interventions, or other supports for students, teachers, and staff who have been targeted by racism, witnessed incidents of racism, or engaged in racist behaviors. And the programs, interventions, and other supports may be provided by social workers, psychologists, or other professionals who have training in similar fields as determined by the board. Do you see how they are setting up the tyranny of the expert class? In Soviet Russia, people were sent to gulags by being deemed either mentally ill or engaged in anti-government sentiments. They were sent to gulags, some of them never to return, ever to be heard from again. Innocent people. The weapons of tyranny. All right. Setting up their experts. Anti-racism protocol. 7.5. Establish a protocol for recognizing, acknowledging, tracking, measuring, investigating, and responding to incidents of racism reported by students, teachers, staff, parents, or the school community. Establish a protocol for recognizing, setting up brown shirts in the school system to rat out people falsely or correctly. Because as we know, this is an unjust situation where people get smeared and labeled and categorized without due process of law. That's the key. You never get to face your accuser. You never get to defend yourself, because in this view, you have no defense. It's Marxism. Racist disturbances. 1.1 bracket. Every person who disrupts or attempts to disrupt the proceedings of a school or class through the use of racist language or by engaging in racist activities is guilty of an offense and on conviction is liable to a fine of not more than $200. Well, that's a lot if you're a teenager, isn't it? 6. Subsection 264 bracket 1 of the Act is amended by adding the following clause: anti-racism, bracket C.1, to advance racial equity. To advance racial equity. Sink it in. Just sink it in. 7. Subsection 265 bracket 1 of the Act is amended by adding the following clause. Oh, I already did that. Oh, they put 6 and 7. So bracket B.1 is to advance racial equity. 8. Subsection 268 bracket 2 of the Act is amended by adding the following paragraph: 3.1, anti-racism and racial equity training for new teachers. In other words, you don't get to be a teacher on staff unless you've had this indoctrination, and you can clearly march to the Marxist tune of defining who is a little racist and who is not. Bracket A.1, to ensure that pupils receive the benefit of an education system that is safe and promotes respect and racial equity. Listen, I'm just going to pause right here. Reading your Bible and obeying the gospel of Christ does all of this already. Think about it. Let that sink in. Here's another thing. 10. The Act is amended by adding the following section: anti-racism competency. 277.28.1. Despite anything in a regulation made under this Act, a performance appraisal of a teacher shall include competencies related to a teacher's anti-racism awareness and the teacher's efforts to promote racial equity. Again, not equality, but equity, which is a different thing. Two different things. 11. Section 287.2 of the Act is amended by adding the following clause: A.1 bracket, to ensure that pupils receive the benefit of an education system that is safe and promotes respect and racial equity. Again, the Bible does that. 12, and has been for generations. 12. Section 300.0.1 of the Act is amended by adding the following paragraph: 7. To create schools in Ontario that promote racial equity. Again, not equality, equity, which means a different thing. 13 bracket 1, subsection 301 bracket 2 of the Act is amended by adding the following paragraph: 8. To promote racial equity and anti-racism and to prevent racism. Listen, people, if you haven't got it by now, you cannot prevent externally by fines or otherwise what is in a person's heart. You can't. Bracket 2, subclause 301, bracket 6, bracket A, bracket I of the Act is amended by adding racism after bullying. Bracket 3, section 301 of the Act is amended by adding the following subsection: same, promoting racial equity. Again, not equality. bracket 7.1.1, the minister shall establish policies and guidelines with respect to promoting racial equity in schools, which must include policies and guidelines respecting A, training for all teachers and other staff, B, resources to support pupils, teachers, and staff who have been targeted by racism, C, strategy. Again, I warn you that this has nothing to do with justice because it's only on accusation, insinuation, without due process. C, strategies to support pupils, teachers, and staff who witness incidents of racism. D, resources to support pupils, teachers, and staff who have engaged in racist behaviors. E, procedures that allow pupils, teachers, and staff to report incidents of racism safely and in a way that minimizes the possibility of reprisal. F, procedures that allow parents and guardians and other persons to report incidents of racism. G, the use of disciplinary measures within the framework described in clause bracket 6, bracket A, in response to racism. H, procedures for responding appropriately and in a timely manner to racism. And I, matters to be addressed in prevention of racist behaviors and intervention plans established by boards under section 303.4. Okay, I'm just going to stop right here because I keep going on about this without due process. Anybody can make an accusation of anything about anybody. And it doesn't, in this case, you've got a panel of experts, so-called experts, who've been trained by the Marxist machine to identify something that is supposed, but the person who is being accused never, ever gets their day in court. Never. Never. And this is setting up our parliamentary process to destroy rule of law governing good civil behavior. We already have laws that govern good civil behavior. What this is doing is setting up people within schools and boards to be brown shirts. If you don't know what that means, you better Google it. Okay, how long have I been going here? 32 minutes, and I'm still not through this. How far do I have to go? If you don't want to listen to me read all of this, you can go to it for yourselves. Bracket 4, subsection 301, bracket 7.2 of the Act is amended by striking out the minister may establish at the beginning and substituting the minister shall establish. This is a directive rather than a suggestion. This is taking away liberties of the minister. This is Marxism dictating to the Minister of Education what they shall and shall not do. This is very concerning, people. I know it seems like a lot of gobbledygook when you look at it, but it's not at all. This is the Marxist takeover of our province and our country through backdoor means. 14, the Act is amended by adding the following section. Board's Racial Equity Plan, 303.4, bracket 1. Every board shall establish a racial equity plan for the schools of the board and require its schools to implement the plan. That is regardless of the culture of the school. In other words, there's a very big difference between the schools in the Brantford part of the board than there are in the Cayuga part of the board, that are in the Simcoe part of the board, or the Paris part of the board, or the other county parts of the board. This is flat out bringing tyranny to smaller boards and giving them no say about how schools shall be governed according to the culture that they are in. Contents of plan. Bracket 2, the racial equity plan shall address any matter specified in the policies or guidelines made under clause 301, bracket 7.1.1, bracket I. Consultation. Bracket 3, when establishing the racial equity plan, a board shall solicit the views of the pupils, teachers, and staff of the board, the volunteers working in the schools, the parents and guardians of the pupils, school councils, and the public. When were you, John Q. Public, Jane Q. Public, ever consulted on this? You're the ratepayer, paying for this. If you're a homeowner, you are paying for this. When were you ever consulted? I just ask you. Did you get an email? Did you get a phone call? I know I didn't. Communication of plans, board. 4, bracket. A board shall make its racial equity plan available to the public by posting it on the board's website, or if the board does not have a website, in another manner that the board considers appropriate. Okay, so we do have that on the Grand Erie District School Board. We do have it there. You can go and see it for yourself. I don't need to show it to you. Same principle. Bracket 5. A principal of a school shall make the board's racial equity plan available to the public by posting it on the school's website, or if the school does not, did I already read that? Oh yeah. Does not have a website, in another manner that the principal considers appropriate. Do you see why you all who complained to me and were totally freaked out on social media, why it is that you got those student census? This covers the Catholic board too, I just have to say. So don't think that you're going to get away from this. They're trying to write this in law. It's not in law. It has not been ratified in law, but they are already implementing this in advance because it's a Marxist takeover of our parliamentary procedure. And you need to take this to your MPP in Ontario. This is Ontario, but I would be willing to bet that if you went and looked at the ministry sites of any other province, you'd find similar things. I'm just going to stop for a minute here and during the last municipal elections in the various provinces where they were held, and I believe it was Ontario and British Columbia and was it Manitoba? I don't think you people understood how important the role of a school board trustee is. And so you never investigated the people who were standing up for you or against you and against this evil tide in the election. I just wanted to say I'm so very grateful to all of you who did cast your vote for me. I heard you loud and clear just by the support. It overwhelmed me. I had no idea. It brings me to tears almost to think. And that has made me very determined to ensure that you understand what is going on here and that you have a voice, that you know how to stand up for yourself, that you know how to take back your voice, or you know how to stem this flood before it's too late, because they're using the school system, the Ministry of Education, to enact a Marxist takeover of our parliamentary democracy. I hate the word democracy because that's not really what we are. But anyway, I'm going back here again. I'm going to read some more, bore you to tears. I'm so sorry. The review of the plan. Remember, this is not law yet. This has not been signed into law, and they are enacting it in advance and have been for more than 1 year. Okay, 15, subsection 306, bracket 1 of the Act is amended by adding the following paragraph. 6.1, engaging in behaviors or using language that is racist. Here's where it gets really subjective, boys and girls, really subjective. And everyone is in danger. Higher Education Quality Control Act, Council of Ontario Act, 2005. 16. Subsection 1 of the Higher Education Quality Council of Ontario Act. Did you even know there was such a thing? I had no idea. 2005 is amended by adding the following definitions. Anti-racism means the policy of opposing racism, including anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Black racism, anti-Asian racism, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia. Remember, it has nothing to say about the rest of us. Racism means the use of socially constructed ideas of race to justify or support, whether consciously or subconsciously, the notion that one race is superior to another. This is exactly what these things enact. They enact racism. They use these socially constructed ideas of race to justify harassing other people for their preferences. And as I said to a mother anyway, there are many jerks in this world. There are many, many jerks. They're jerks. They're thoughtless. They're stupid. They're foolish. People are. We all say stupid things at stupid times. Things pop out of our mouths from time to time that we don't mean to come out. We wish we could take back, but we can't. Just because you're a jerk doesn't mean you're a racist. And just because one person in the group happens to be a jerk doesn't mean that the whole group of people are a racist. Doesn't mean they're all jerks too. This is so unjust. All right, here we go. 17, Section 2 of the Act is amended by adding the following subsections. Racial equity representative. This is where it gets really scary. Bracket 5.1. At least one member of the council shall be a person who has expertise in racial equity in the post-secondary education sector. Well, I wonder who that would be. Commitment to racial equity. Bracket 5.2. If the minister learns upon conducting an investigation or otherwise that a member of the council does not have a proven commitment to racial equity in the post-secondary education sector, the minister shall require that member to take anti-racism training within the following 6 months. Does this sound like George Orwell's 1984? If you haven't read that, you need to read that book. Good grief, it was required reading when I was in high school, and this is what we see playing out right before us. Same. Bracket 5.3, the anti-racism training referred to in subsection bracket 5.2 shall be training developed by experts in the field of anti-racism education community. How wonderful. Just give these little tyrants, these bureaucrats, authority. Brown shirts. That's what they used to call them. And I'll leave it to you to look up where. Anti-racism object. Bracket 2. It is also an object of the council to assist the minister in ensuring that the post-secondary education sector promotes racial equity and works to combat racism. 19. Bracket 1. Section 6 of the Act is amended by adding the following clauses. Bracket A.1. To develop and implement a racial equity strategy for the post-secondary education sector that includes anti-racism professional development opportunities for anyone involved in the post-secondary education sector and any other prescribed programs or information. This is setting up a special class, isn't it? Can you see it now? Can you see what is being built? to persecute people of differing opinions with different religious worldviews who happen to have different pigmentations than the ones that are outlined. Do you understand? Bracket 2, Clause 6, bracket C of the Act is amended by adding the following subclause. Bracket I.1 on racial equity in the post-secondary educational sector. Do you see how racism is just being promoted? Racism, promote racism. 20, subsection 8, bracket 3 of the Act is repealed and the following substituted. Same. Bracket 3, the Council shall include in the annual report, bracket A, data collected within the post-secondary education sector that documents racism, anti-racist initiatives, and steps taken towards racial equity within that sector. And B, such additional content in the annual report as the minister may require. 21, clauses 9, bracket 1, bracket C, and bracket D of the Act are repealed, and the following substituted. C, prescribing objects, including racial equity objects, of the Council in addition to the objects described in Section 5. D, prescribing functions, including racial equity functions, of the Council in addition to the functions set out in Section 6. Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities Act. 22. The Ministry of Training, Colleges and University Act is amended by adding the following section: anti-racism. Definitions. Okay, these are the same definitions, okay? Every college or university described shall have an anti-racism policy. Student, faculty, and staff input review. It's making me sick reading this. Okay, so information for the minister. I'm going to write this down. I'm going to read this. 7. Every college or university described in subsection bracket 2 shall collect from its students, because this is important, this is the part, shall collect from its students, faculty, staff, and other persons, and provide to the minister such data and other information relating to the following as may be requested by the minister in the manner and form directed by the minister. That was what those student censuses were about. 1. The number of times support services, complaints, resolutions, and accommodation relating to racism are requested, made, and obtained by students enrolled or at faculty or staff of the college or university, and information about the support services, complaints, resolutions, and accommodation. 2. Any anti-racism initiatives, and programs established by the college or university to promote awareness of the supports and services available to students, faculty, and staff. Who do you go to rat out to? How do you get your money out of it? 3. The number of incidents and complaints of racism reported by students, faculty, and staff, and information about such incidents and complaints, including how the incidents and complaints were addressed or resolved. 4. The implementation and effectiveness of the policy. Okay, so this has to report to the Board of Governors. Personal information. Yeah, do you trust your government with personal information? Just asking. 9. A college or university shall take reasonable steps to ensure that information provided to the minister pursuant to subsection 7 or to its Board of Governors pursuant to subsection 8 does not disclose personal information within the meaning of section 38 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. So you better go and look at that. There's no link to that in there, but Section 38, write it down, Section 38 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, those of you who were upset about getting these surveys. Okay. Survey 10. Every 3 years, the minister shall conduct or direct a college or a university described in subsection 2 to conduct or participate in a survey of students, faculty, staff, and any other persons as identified by the minister relating to the effectiveness of the college's or university's anti-racism policy, to the incidence of racism at the college or university, and to any other matter mentioned in paragraphs 1 to 4 of subsection 7. Okay. I know this is just desperate, isn't it? Same. A college or university that is directed by the minister to conduct a survey described in subsection 10 shall disclose the results of the survey to the minister and the public. Well, I wonder if we'll ever see those. Regulations. Oh my goodness, this is just deadly. 12. The lieutenant governor in council may make regulations relating to addressing racism, anti-racism, and racial equity involving students enrolled at or faculty or staff of colleges and universities described in subsection 2, and governing anti-racism policies required under this section, and without limiting the generality of this power, may make regulations, A, governing processes that shall be followed, and persons who shall be consulted in the development and approval of anti-racism policies, and in their review and amendment, and governing how student, faculty, and staff input shall be provided and considered in such development, review, and amendment. You know, this is making a lot of petty bureaucrats who have positions of power that you did not vote for. You call that democracy? Just saying. Governing topics that this is number B, governing topics that shall be addressed or elements that shall be included in anti-racism policies. Well, maybe you got a wart on your nose. Maybe your teeth are crooked. Maybe you go to the wrong bathroom. Okay, I'm being silly, but you're getting where I'm going, I'm hoping. Oh dear, governing topics. This is number C, governing the provision of training to faculty, staff, students, and other persons about anti-racism policies. D, respecting the publication of anti-racism policies and the promotion of awareness of other policies. E, requiring that appropriate support, services, and accommodation relating to racism be provided to students, faculty, and staff affected by racism, and governing such supports, services, and accommodation and their provision. Okay, I'm going to pause again here, because who is decide what is, if I look sideways at someone while I'm sitting in a cafeteria, because I'm thinking about something totally different, but I happen to look sideways at a person who is prone to be offended and wants to raise the banner of racism against me, how am I to prove that my side eye was done absolutely without even thinking about the person I was looking at, or who thought I was looking at them? It is entirely subjective, and there is no rule of law. There is no due process. You cannot defend yourself against this kind of tyranny. Just saying. And here's the other thing. If they bring it into schools so that every little bot who gets put through the meat grinder there has got that, they come out into society as little bots who are governed by those guiding principles of tyranny. Do you understand yet? Okay, I'll go on and read. F, governing any other matter that the lieutenant governor in council determines is necessary or advisable relating to racism involving students. Again, that's an awful lot of power put into a person who is. Do we elect the lieutenant governor? Like, do we? Who does? Okay. Including 1, governing all matters relating to anti-racism policies and their implementation, and 2, governing other measures that colleges and universities shall implement, not may or could, shall implement, or other things that colleges and universities shall do to address racism involving students, faculty, and staff. At this point, I don't know why any of you would even consider sending your children to any of these institutions to be indoctrinated and left open for abuse. I don't know why any of you would do that. You can get a really great private education in many topics without having to go through this. I have practically got several university credits just from watching professors on YouTube. I'm serious. I didn't have to write the notes, but I got the education. And I can go back to that and that YouTube and I can review it at any time. Just saying. Oh, dear. 23, subsection 18, bracket 1 of the Ontario Colleges of Teachers Act, 1996, there's another one to read, is amended by striking out and at the end of the clause B by adding and at the end of clause C and by adding the following clause. D, successfully completes any prescribed examinations and training in anti-racism that are required for the issuance of the certificate. That is Marxism. That's communism. I'm sorry. 24, subsection 42, bracket 1 of the Act is amended by adding the following clause. Bracket C.0.0.2, respecting examinations and training that relate to anti-racism for the purposes of clause 18, bracket 1, bracket D, including but not limited to the development, form, content, administration, and provision of such examinations and training, any exemptions from such examinations and training, and any other matters the Lieutenant Governor and Council considers necessary or advisable in connection with the implementation of such examinations and training. This is tyranny in progress, people. Tyranny in progress. The same applies in the Ontario Colleges of Applied Arts and Technologies Act, which was in 2002. Okay. Mandating anti-racist education and training. Do you see what has been allowed to foment against the civilized governance of our province by way of the Ministry of Education as to what is being taught in schools? Imagined slights, which never existed as a whole in the common people of our country. We are being tied up so that we can't call a rapist, we can't call a jerk, we can't call a fool. Oh no, he'll be accused and you'll be fined. At least one member of the board. Okay, so you have to have racial equity representatives on every board. You have to make a commitment. Oh, listen to this. Commitment to racial equity. Thank you, Lord, that I did not get the job on the board. I could not stand this. I could not bear this. I could not lie and pretend to this. Commitment to racial equity. Bracket 3, if the minister learns upon conducting an investigation or otherwise that a member of the board does not have a proven commitment to racial equity in the education sector, the minister shall require that member to take anti-racism training within the following 6 months. Okay, have you ever rented the movie 1984? Or have you ever seen, what was that one? Oh darn. The one that, I can't remember that movie. But anyway, while he was being retrained, his eyes were being held open, like this, and drops put in while he was being forced to view the re-education program. What was that movie? Drat, I should have thought about that a little bit more. But this is what this is really reminding me of. Dystopian. Same. bracket 4, the anti-racism training referred to in subsection 3 shall be training developed by experts in the anti-racism education community. So it's this little circle of people who decide unjustly what the rules are, what the criteria are, and how you're going to punish people for it. Does that seem like justice to you? Does that seem like Canadian justice to you? It doesn't to me. Oh my goodness, please tell me I'm almost done. I'm not. Okay, so here we are. The anti-racism has to do with every college or subsidiary of a college. And it has to be reviewed every 3 years and report on the effectiveness of the policy to the ministry. How many little racists did we catch and string up? How many did we go and hang? How many? How many did we get kicked out of school? How many did we get kicked off the faculty? Send them to the re-education camps. That's just like a gulag. Okay. This is horrible. You just have to keep going. Anti-Asian racism, anti-Black racism, Black, Asian, and Jewish. They've added in there. So you see, they're creating special groups of people that you can't even wink your eye at. You can't even nudge. You can't even side eye. Okay, so this is where we are in that. This act, okay, commencement and short title. I want to get to this. The hope of this is this. This act comes into force on the day it receives royal assent. It has not come into force. And I keep saying this. Everything that you see coming down the pipes in the education system, whether it be at universities, colleges, or high schools or elementary schools, is not law. Oh my goodness, I'm coming out of this. Sorry, that was too much reading. And I know it's been really, 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 really dry for you to listen. On the day it receives royal assent, I'm just with, so it doesn't make you barf, I am going here. So this current bill, it has currently carried through first reading. I'm just going to click now as to what the status it is. Okay. And I'm going back here so you can see what I'm looking at. Okay. The Racial Equity in the Education System Act. In summary, what this does is it bypasses all semblance of justice in the school system for people who are accused, whether rightly or falsely, to have due process, to have their day in court, to not be slandered and smeared and sent to re-education camps or re-education sessions and forced to imbibe things that go against their conscientious views. This completely denigrates that. And I wanted to point out one more time that it was brought in by 3 women of color in the NDP party who are not even of the ruling party, and it carried after first reading. This must not pass second reading. And an action plan that I have is that we must write to our MPPs and to the Minister of Education explaining that we already have laws concerning these matters in Canadian and provincial law concerning criminal acts, discrimination. We have them. We don't need petty tyrants to be set up in perpetuity, because how do you fire them? How do you get rid of them? Who says why they're an expert? What makes them an expert? This is absolutely heinous, and we must get it stopped before it gets passed. Furthermore, I think it's fair enough that we go to our school boards and suggest that they stop implementing these types of things which are not lawful. Okay, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a parliamentarian. I'm not a politician. I'm just a little musician and music educator who is concerned for children and for the future of our country. And I could be proven wrong. And if I'm wrong, give me chapter and verse, point it out so that I can study it for myself and learn it. But until then, I think it's time that we stood up for our Canada, our true north, strong and free. God help us. God, keep our land glorious and free. We stand on guard for thee, O Canada. The only way you do it is by letting the minister and your MPP and the rest of the MPPs know that this is a Marxist takeover of our country by stealth through the back door, and it completely thwarts each individual in this province right to hold to views that are their own conscientiously. Okay, well, that's been pretty heavy. I hope this will spark some kind of commentary. And when you see in the comment my email, please go ahead, email me. Now, I'm going to tell you this. If you swear at me or you call me an idiot, I might agree with you that I am. But I'm not going to dignify you if you can't be civil. We live in a civil society with rule of law that was passed down to us from our forefathers and our foremothers. And it was hard won. It was very thoughtfully put in place. And these people are trying to destroy our country. And they're doing a good job of it right now because we have been asleep too long. So it's time to wake up, folks. Time to wake up. Smell the coffee. Get busy. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.